Hello students, welcome to our presentation today. I am Agnes Mudhanche Mbosire from Mount Kenya University, School of Public Health, Department of Environmental Health. Today we are covering a topic on drainage and conservancy. Unit code is BPH3199 and the unit topic is drainage and conservancy too. Our lesson objective is first of all to be able to define drain inspection, and then we also need to understand the purpose for drainage inspection. Why do we need to inspect drainage? We also need to understand how to access drain lines for inspection, because when you are conducting drainage inspection, you must be able to access a drain for the purpose of inspection. We also need to understand the various methods that we can use to test drains. So what is a drain inspection? This is a systematic process of evaluating drainage systems to ensure smooth wastewater transitions from pipeline to sewage system. You all know that drains are supposed to convey wastewater from the main house to a sewage system, and therefore this process has to be systematic. And performing a drain inspection aims to prevent drainage problems such as pipe cracks. You cannot be able to know whether the drain is okay or it has a crack unless you do drain inspection. So it helps to avert problems such as drain cracks, sometimes drainage, also depending on the liquids that are passing through, they get corrosion, and corrosion later on causes leakage to pipes. And therefore, to avert the problems of corrosion, you need to conduct drain inspection. There are also other problems like frost. We also have major clogs, which includes maybe penetration of roots from vegetation or trees that could be growing around the environment where the drains are passed or are laid. You also have toilet paper buildup. At times you do not have adequate water to flush out the toilet paper and other materials that could be in the wastewater. And you also have food waste, especially from the sinks and other uses. And therefore, the food waste can also clog the drains. Therefore, it's important to continue inspecting your drains so that you protect or you prevent clogging up all the problems that are associated with blockage. Proper execution of drain inspections help us to detect early problems, to eliminate expensive repairs. When you do not inspect or anticipate that there's going to be a problem in the drainage system, it leads to an expensive process of having to repair the drain system. And of course, you know, at times, you know the problems that have been caused by blocked drainage systems, a problem that could have been averted or prevented if the drain was inspected early enough. So you need to prevent the hassle of slow water drainage and waste clogs. At times, there is very slow passage of water through the drain systems, and this causes clogging. And therefore, this clogging can be identified early enough if inspection is properly conducted. It also helps in mitigating the risk of damaged pipelines and drainage systems, and it also helps in increasing and promoting environmental safety. Wastewater and sewage contains agents of diseases. It contains pathogenic organisms, not even to mention that a blocked or a leaking drainage system is an eyesore. So the purpose for drainage systems also, the purpose for testing drains. When people complete constructions, before occupation, they need to be given an occupation certificate. And one of the areas that are considered for a person to be given an occupation certificate is ensuring that the drainage system will not cause problems for the user, and it will not cause problems for the environment, and it will not cause pollution. And therefore, inspection of drainage system is very important. It also helps to facilitate drain maintenance. If you do not anticipate, or if you do not notice that there is a problem, which can only be identified through drain inspection, then you will not be able to know the kind of maintenance that is required for that drainage system. And maintenance may include properly repairing a drain that has broken, or declogging, removing the debris, or making any correction that could be causing a problem within the drainage. It also helps to check for appropriate gradients to prevent backflow of the wastewater. And this one is best done maybe immediately after construction, before the building is in use, or before the drain starts getting to be used, because that is the time you change gradients. At the same time, gradient may also change after the building has started, after the drain has already started being used, depending on maybe the movement of the earth could have caused dislodging of the drainage system from the area where it was originally constructed, or as a result of maybe heavy vehicles, depending on where the drain is constructed, passing through and therefore interfering with the original laying down of the drain. It also helps to avoid environmental pollution associated with blocked or inefficient drainage system. We have said earlier that blocked drainage releases wastewater to the environment, thereby causing environmental pollution, which comes with it other health problems, including passing on pathogenic organisms to the environment. And that results to the population getting diseases that are related to sanitation. We also need to protect environment and human beings from those pathogenic organisms that are associated with poor sanitation, and therefore adequate or proper drainage inspection will help us in preventing diseases. It will also help to prevent nuisance that is likely to arise from discharges that come from poorly constructed and inefficient drainage systems. Then if you are to access, or if you are to inspect a drainage system, how do you access a drainage system for inspection? So properly constructed drains must have provisions for accessibility for the purposes of inspection and maintenance. If you are to maintain a drainage system that has gone wrong, then you have to access it. Otherwise, without access, you will not be able to access the drainage system. There are drain access points that are provided at the appropriate points, and this is basically done during construction. These accesses include manhole. Manhole is a drainage access that is usually provided to access the drain that has been constructed under the ground. Then you also have inspection chambers that are done above the ground, and you also have inspection eye, which are provided on the building or on drain pipes. Talking about drain access points, they need to be conveniently positioned near end of each drain line. Drainage system is usually long, sometimes you have very short, but it is constructed in bits. And therefore, it should not be so long such that you cannot access. So it is meant, the access points are meant in such points such that you can be able to conveniently access a certain length of a drainage system. An access point is also conveniently placed at a bend or change of direction. Sometimes, and of course you know that it is not possible to have a whole line from here to wherever you need to connect the drain to the sewer system. So sometimes you need to change the direction depending on where your building is or where the construction is and the main line of the sewerage system. And therefore you may need to change the direction of flow by providing a bend. At that particular point, because one of the principles of drainage system that it should be on a straight line, at that particular point you provide an access point so that it helps to change the flow, and it provides an access point so that you avoid the bend and you can be able to access the drainage at a straight line on each end. It is also convenient where the pipe diameter in a run changes. Sometimes, depending on the amount of water, depending on the amount of wastewater that is passing through the drain, you need pipes of different diameters. And therefore, if you need to change the diameter, like for instance, you are draining a small house and it has to connect to another drain that is coming from a bigger house where you expect a larger flow, you will need to change the diameter at a certain point. And at that particular point, you need to provide an access point so that you can be able to access both sides of the drainage system. You also need an access point at a change in gradient. A change in gradient is very important. The purpose of the gradient is to ensure that there is smooth flow of wastewater. At times, you need to change the gradient depending on how deep or in order to facilitate the flow of the wastewater. So you may need to change the gradient as you connect to the next point. And again, you need an access point at a junction or at a place where one pipe meets another, because at times problems arise at the joints, and it is important to access that point, especially if the joint needs repair or if the joints need to be reconnected. Then we have various drain tests. One of the important things when it comes to drain tests is to be able to use an appropriate test for the purposes intended. You can have problems arising, especially when it comes to leakage of piping, and therefore you need to anticipate through inspection that a problem or a drainage system is likely to leak. And therefore, you need to conduct drain tests that are convenient or that are going to show you that the product or the drain is actually leaking. A drain pipe test ensures the pipe is sufficiently watertight. This prevents the pipe from leaking its contents into the surrounding soil and potentially overloading or contaminating the local water table. Sometimes drain pipes are laid on areas where the water table is very high, and when the wastewater leaks into the environment, it's likely to contaminate the water table or the underground water. This underground water is used in other areas. We could be having a neighbor who has dug a shallow well and uses that water, and therefore if a leaking drainage pipe is passing along and it's polluting the water, then we are going to have a problem with the user of that particular well. Drain tests are normally applied to a pipeline between consecutive manholes. Manholes are conveniently placed at convenient distances so that you can be able to access drains from one end to the other. And therefore, you need to test, or when you are conducting drain test, it's done separately on each section between each manhole. So short branches connected to the main run are usually tested as part of the main run unless they can be easily isolated for individual testing. Manholes and inspection chambers are tested separately using the water test. And we will be able to describe how water test is done. We also test, water test is used for leakage, to test whether the pipe is leaking. We have various tests that can help us get to know whether the pipe or the drainage system is leaking. You also test for self-siphonage. At times we have different pressures. You know when the water is flowing, at times we use, usually drainage are constructed to use gravity unless pumping systems are provided. And then you have atmospheric pressure. Siphonage happens when we have difference in the pressures. The atmospheric pressure will want to pull upwards, but the gravity will tend to pull downwards. So when the drainage is not properly constructed, you are likely to have self-siphonage, whereby you have water flowing on the opposite direction. And that's when you can easily have backflow or wastewater getting back into the building unnecessarily. So to test for the effect of self-siphonage, the appliance should be filled to overflowing level and discharged by removing the plug. Water closet pans should be flushed for you to be able to access or to understand the issues related, or to understand the self-siphonage. Some of these things we'll need to do practically when we have the practical session. So what do you test for when you are conducting drainage testing? You test for gravity. Gravity is very important for us to be able, or to ensure that the water or the wastewater in the drain is having a self-cleansing velocity or a free-flowing velocity to avoid backflow and subsequent blockage. If the gravity is not adequate, if the velocity of the water is not adequate, then you're going to have wastewater flowing very slowly, and the slow flow of the water is likely to make the solids remain on the surface of the drain pipe, and this can slowly build up to a clogging or to cause problems that will cause clogging and finally blockage. Therefore, it's important to continually check the drainage system for gravity and for easy flow. You also check for leakage, as I have said. Broken pipes, and sometimes joints are not properly done on the pipes. They may cause wastewater to leak into the environment, thereby causing nuisance. So you need to test the drain if it is leaking by using the appropriate tests that we are going to look at. And of course, I have mentioned about checking for self-siphonage. This is where there is a force that tends to suck up the contents of the drains, mainly to the wrong direction. The water is supposed to flow using gravity, but when there is a difference in the pressure, in the atmospheric pressure and the velocity, then you are going to have problems in the drainage system. So these are the tests that we are supposed to use to investigate the leakage. We have air test. This one is usually conducted for single pipes or individual drain lines. The air pressure test is effective, but it can only be used to test the length of a drain that can be capped at both ends. We will need to do a practical session on air test for us to be able to understand how air test is conducted. Then to test for drainage, leakage again, you use what we call water drop test. This is for complete drainage systems, including the chambers and gullies. These ones are usually involved, it can test a whole drainage system. The water drop test uses water where it is pumped in the drainage system, and you observe the flow, whether it is maintained or not. You observe if there is a drop on the level of water that was originally there. Then you also have what we call smoke test. Smoke test is a relatively simple process that contains blowing smoke mixed with large volumes of air into the sanitary sewer line, usually induced through a manhole. So you have a manhole and you have another manhole on this other side. You blow air inside with smoke, and if there is leakage on that pipe, you will be able to see smoke on the surface. And therefore, you will notice where there is smoke, you know that water is likely to leak from there. The smoke travels through the path of a tree's resistance and quickly shows up at sites that allow surface water to inflow. So how does an air test work? First, airtight plugs are inserted in order to isolate the section of the pipe work that's being tested. So using a drain pressure gauge, you are able to check the pressure for 5 minutes. The next point is the pressure is adjusted to 100 millimeters hand reading of the pressure gauge. And after 5 minutes, any change on the head will help you or will make you know that there is a leakage or there is likely to be a leakage. If there is no leakage, then the pressure will be maintained at that particular point. Other tests that are conducted on drain include mirror test. This one helps to test the straightness of the sewer. And what happens is that a mirror is placed at one end, and then you have a lamp on the other end. Generally, the inside of the drain is dark, and so when you have a lamp and you providing light on one end and a mirror on the other end, if the pipeline is straight, then the full circle of light will be observed on the mirror. Then you also have another test, which we call ball test. This ball test, you use a ball, basically, usually you use a billiard ball, which is placed on the high end of the pipe, and it is allowed to roll through the pipe to the low end of the pipe. If they are not, if the constructions are having issues, or we do not have straightness, or there is something that can cause blockage of the pipe, then the ball will not be able to be seen or to roll down to the other end. It is important to note that drainage tests are usually best done maybe before the constructions or before the houses are put to use, and before you push back the soil or you fill back the soil on the drainage pipe, to avoid a lot of expenses when you have to undo the whole drainage system for you to be able to maintain the drain system. Thank you very much, students, and stay tuned.
These televised lectures supplement our robust online learning going on our MKU online platform. You can view more on our televised lectures via our online platform. We are in a digital era, and Mount Kenya University knows this. The following are the steps to follow so as to complete your online application. Download the application form from the website www.mku.ac.ke. Attach copies of your academic certificates and ID. Pay the application fees via M-Pesa pay bill number 270988. Your ID is the account number. 2,000 shillings is the charge for a postgraduate. You can also deposit in the bank accounts provided on the website. Then email all the above to apply@mku.ac.ke.